Professor Van Houma, dear colleagues and forum participants. In the very short time which I have, I will try to describe the most complex challenges which higher education institutions worldwide now face in trying to move from operating mainly within nation states to a global engagement network. I will use some Chinese proverbs that are suitable for what I am trying to say. There is a Chinese proverb that it's not clear if it's a blessing or a curse that says, may you live in interesting times. But no matter how we interpret it, we definitely live in interesting times, in very stormy. Higher education systems operate now in most stormy waters. And I will relate to 7 pairs of contrasting trends which higher education systems right now have to be attentive and decide where are they going and how to balance and maneuver between these contrasting trends. So the first one relates to national priorities versus a global network, to belong to a global network. Actually, the whole notion of a national higher education system is a very new one. It started only in the middle of the 20th century, because beforehand, higher education universities, higher education institutions operated as individual entities. But the idea of a higher education system really emerged from the nation states, and it consolidated in the half of the middle 20th century, saying that there is a macro structure of higher education that all higher education institutions belong to. So it means that Chinese higher education is different from Korean higher education, from German higher education, from Israeli higher education, and so on. But right now, we are facing both massification and globalization. And there is a Chinese proverb that says, what you cannot avoid, welcome. So if we like globalization, we hate it, we dislike it, it is there. And so it's better that we adopt to the phenomena. If we look at the massification, so only at the start of the 20th century, in a book that we can collect the data, because there is no really accurate data, it moves from 500,000 to 1 million. They say that at the beginning of the 20th century, less than 1 million students studied all over the world. Now, according to, again, somebody said today 130 million, some say over 200 million, because it depends how you count the students. In the United States, Patty, the community colleges are part of higher education. In Israel, these kind of institutions are not part of higher education, but we speak on huge amounts. So the massification is something really changed totally the scene of higher education. And from 2 to 3% of the relevant age cohort to over 60, and we heard in Korea even over 80% of the age cohort participating in higher education. Obviously, globalization is a force. In a book that was written by Douglas John and King Jude, they are heading the Higher Education Studies Center in UC Berkeley, and the theme of the book was Globalization's Views, Universities and Higher Education Systems in a Changing World. They say that globalization is a force more powerful than industrialization, urbanization, and secularization combined. Very strong. We cannot avoid it. Because I don't have time, I will not read all these quotations, but economists said that the Humboldt University is going to be replaced by an emerging global university. And the former president of MIT, Charles West, said that the idea of a multiversity, a term coined by Clark Kerr, the architect of the system of higher education, the California higher education, and the US Carnegie Foundation Advancement of Teaching, which classifies higher education, is going also to be changed by a meta-university, which will change the multiversity idea. Obviously, there are many globalization trends, and I'm not going to go into detail because I don't have time. And just to be updated, on the 29th of September, so just like a month ago, a new collaboration was launched between the Technion in Israel and the Li Kai-shing Foundation to establish a special Technion campus in the Shantung University in south of China, and so on. Peking University has relations with Stanford University, my alma mater, and with Princeton and Yale, and so on. So this is something which is quite common, and I will not go into it. But by the way, global and offshore campuses, I heard some things that I was in a conference a month ago in Madrid about a global campus university which is established in South Korea and will host 10 mini campuses, 5 from the United States and 5 from Europe, in leading fields, in different leading fields. It's now in the process of being established, but there are many more such endeavors, and we heard about it this morning and going to hear about it also later on. So MOOCs, we're going to hear after this session a special lecture on this, so I will not go into it, and I will jump to the second pair of the contrasting trends: government steering versus institutional autonomy. On one hand, we have a paradox, because government steering is now more stringent than ever before. Stringent control mechanisms, budget allocation, budget cuts, accountability measures. You cannot open in Israel any university, even if it's private, if it does not get the permission of the Council for Higher Education. On the other hand, governments are saying you have autonomy, go out of the box and kind of find money. So set priority goals, decide on global national orientation, like Hong Kong University, which is the leading research university, has 20-something thousand students, but has hundreds of students in private endeavors of the university, and they have obviously the advantage that they speak both Chinese and English. So they actually combine almost the whole world. 7 pairs, the next third pair of the contrasting trends: enhancing equity versus meritocracy. Petty, one of the books that came out from the Fulbright New Century Scholars, our group, 2005-2006, was on access and equity. And obviously, on one hand, we want to enhance in higher education meritocracy, because this is higher education. Once it was for the best aristocracy, the meaning in Greece is the best one, yes? So once it was enough to be a man, belonging to the right religion and belonging to the right social group. Now, based on human capital theories, democratization trends, knowledge society, and so on, so it's different. But how is it manifested today? There are special access policies set by governments for excelling students, and fellowship and grants for excelling students, and access requirements for universities like MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and so on. League tables, which one of the leading ones is Jia Tong from Shanghai, tables, world-class universities, all these enhance meritocracy. On the other hand, you want to enhance equity. So you diversify the different types of higher education institutions, the liberal arts in the United States. Actually, the United States for many years was a very much diversified system. You make it more flexible. In the United States, again, you can move from a community college to a University of Berkeley, which is almost unthinkable in Europe, I think in Japan, in Israel, in any other place, in Germany also. You have preparatory framework and so on, so you have different measures also of equity manifested today. I don't have time. I can give you a lecture of 1 hour on each of these themes, but I'm running. Increased diversity versus harmonization. How much time? Only 2 minutes? Wow. This is a little bit. When the wind of change blows, a Chinese proverb says, some build walls while others build windmills. So there is really a huge diversity. I don't have time to enter, to discuss it, but higher education systems really are diverse by any parameters that you can think of. And I'm in the field of comparative higher education for more than 20 years, so it's a really most interesting, extremely interesting field, but you will take it for granted. The systems are very diverse. I'm going, the other one, public versus private higher education. In some higher education systems, you do not have, I have still 5 minutes, according to my watch. The public versus the private provision of higher education, some higher education systems like England, there is almost, except one private small university, you have no private. In other countries like in Indonesia and Korea and Japan, most of the higher education system is private, and you have many problems with it, specifically with the diploma mills and the low-level private higher education. And since I don't have time, I will go to competition versus collaboration, which is also quite clear. for reputation, for students, for academic faculty. You need to compete. At the same time, you need also to collaborate. And obviously, a nation's treasure is its scholars. So you need collaboration in research with students and so on. And the last one is intellectual property versus intellectual philanthropy. At the same time, you have very stringent copyright legal constrictions, and on the other hand, you have the MOOCs and all the other things. And there is a Chinese proverb that says, deep doubts, deep wisdom, small doubts, little wisdom. So obviously, we need now really we have deep doubts, and the challenge of navigating between contrasting trends is such that each higher education system has to decide where it's going between these navigating systems. And two more proverbs, and that's it. One Chinese proverb says, it does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop. So we have to go. But another proverb says, think 3 times before you move. Thank you very much.